Hi, my name is Cameron. This is the factory, and today I'm going to teach you about 3D printing. Alright, so what we're going to do today is we're just going to go through a sample print. I'm going to take you through the review process to show you how everything's done for patron submissions. So the first thing, of course, you open up Google Chrome. Just any internet browser should work. We will have the links that you'll need on the bookmark. You'll want to go to 3D Print Queue, that's what it should be named. It'll pull up this page here. Once everything's set up for you, you'll have your own login. So you'll just go to Technician Login in the top right and sign in. I'm just going to sign in real quick. There we go. So then just hit go to the queues, and that will have you logged in. Now this is the new submission page. This is where all of the new entries will come in for us to review. You can get to it the way I just showed you, or you can go down to this tab here and just click on this link. It'll just be new submission reviews. And as you can see, there's a couple in the queue. I submitted a couple ones just for our purposes here. This will kind of go over all the items you'll need to worry about when you're looking over these prints. So the first thing you need to do is preview any of the models that you submit. Go ahead and just click the link here, and it'll show up a screen with an example of the model. And you can zoom out, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom out, you can hold down right mouse to move it around as you need, just to orientate, get yourself an idea. And then under here you're going to have the model name, and then some submission notes from the customer or the patron. Here they're going to detail everything that they may want specific about a print, so the color, the material type, how big they want it, so on and so forth. Here you've got the date you submitted, or they submitted rather. And then on the right here, you're going to have all their contact information, as well as any notes that your manager may put in, be as it may. Here I've got some detail information, but they'll have their phone number, their email, and their actual name here. And then, so once you've got the idea of what it is, the main thing that you're looking for in a print is any possible features of the model that will cause a failure. These include multiple models in the same image. So if you see more than just one model in this sort of window here, we can't print it. They need to split them up or combine the two into one model. The reason for that is it just makes it easier on us. It increases the likelihood of these models failing if there's more than one, because if one fails, they all fail. We have to restart from the beginning. So it's just a waste of filament if it does fail. Another thing you want to look out for is very explicit details, like these little lines right here that make up the barrels of whatever cannon that is. Those will be extremely thin things to print, so whenever you're printing them out, it's likely that they'll break off. So unless they've accounted for that, you may want to let them know that this may be a difficulty. And then as well, another thing you want to look for is the size. Now, our printers have very specific dimensions for what prints they can go through. Now, I'll show you some examples of bad ones, but the main idea is make sure it fits on the bed. If it can't fit on our beds, then we have to reject it and tell them to resize it in something we can accept. As you can see, I've ordered this print in certain dimensions, so 12 inches by 4 inches by 0.75. Now, 12 inches already exceeds this length, so I'm going to have to reject this print and let them know that the size is too large for our purposes. But otherwise, what you'll want to do is just make sure you understand what color filament they want or what type, and make sure that we have that available. If we don't have that available, I'll show you how to let them know, but just keep that in mind whenever you're reviewing the print for future reference. So let's go back here. We've sort of torn this model apart, so I'm going to take you through the other four here and just give you an idea of what I would do and wouldn't do in this case. So the next one here, we've got a random name that someone generated. I'm just going to preview it. And as you can see, it's a little star with a nice model on top. This actually is a very good model. As you can see, there's some overhangs in the center here where my mouse is pointing. That's going to require some support. I'll go into detail on how to add that in and such later on, but now you just need to know that this model is feasible. This is something that can be done because it's all one piece, but they are going to require some support in the center, so we'll have to watch out for that. Of course, we'll let them know when we review it that that's something we're going to have to take care of. But as you can see, they left no notes, so we can print this in any color, any material we have available, unless they specify otherwise by email or so on. This is pretty much a blank slate as far as the print is concerned, so this is very easy to do. Alright, so no problems here. Let's go on to the next one. This is a base. Now, as you can see, it's a little zoomed in closer to the other one. If we zoom out, you can see it's extremely tiny. Now, common sense dictates that this is too small for us to print, and you would be right. But as you can see in the notes below, they've specified some dimensions, so we'll need to take that into account and adjust that as they want. That is something we can do, and I'll show you how, but for now, don't let this size deceive you from this window, because it doesn't always display the final product. Alright, and then let's go to the final one here. Now this one is a special note. Now, this one we approved, but in most cases, any submissions that look like a weapon of any kind will need to be rejected. No debate, no appeal. If it is something that looks dangerous in some capacity or could be dangerous in some capacity, we cannot print it. Now this was approved because it was confirmed not to be the case, but I just brought it in here because that's one of the things we had to worry about. But as you can see, some of the settings that he requested 70% infill, which is a setting we can change. Essentially it just changes how much filament is put into the center of this, but I'll go into detail on that later. So right now, just know that is another setting that you can change in that patrons can request. Alright, so the main thing, after you've gone through and you've confirmed that these are feasible prints, you want to download each of them and just put them on file to see you have them. I'm going to then open up our main software. Now we're going to open up the software. We've got all our files downloaded, so this is the software that we're actually going to use to slice and prepare them. Now we're not actually going to prepare them for printing, we're just going to review them for now. But since we're trying to give accuracy as far as estimates go for patrons, we'll want to use the same software that we would normally use to actually print these out. So it's the same link right here. It's KSlicer. It'll be tabbed on the tabbed onto the taskbar. Excuse me. Just open it up, and you'll see this screen here. Now, if this box does not appear, if this is somehow minimized or not even there, just simply go up into the top right and click Profile Settings. This is going to be your console to actually change settings for the printer. Now, you're not going to mess with most of these. We're going to have a lot of these pre-configured to make things as easy as possible for you. But you do need to know what all these tabs are and what they do, just so you're familiar of what this is actually consisting of. Now, this item right here is the bed. It's already pre-configured for Polyprinter, so you don't have to adjust anything or transfer anything over. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the top right and select Open, this button here, and you're going to go down to Downloads and just select the most recent models. There should be all 4 of the ones that I downloaded right here. I'm just going to select the first one just to work with because that's easiest on me. So it'll appear here. Some of the larger models may take a bit more time to load in. If so, you'll see a loading bar, and that'll just run through. But as you can see, I'm just rotating things around, orienting things, just getting a good look. Sometimes there will be errors that appear on the model itself. For the most part, you shouldn't have to worry about these, but sometimes with these red errors, they can cause issues or holes in the prints, so you'll want to pay special attention to those when you're actually printing them out, but for now we don't need to worry about that. Of course, hold down right click on your mouse to orient things around, hold down left mouse to move the actual window around. Now what you're going to do you're going to go into settings and make sure everything is adjusted as per the patron's request. So make sure that the material is what they want. This one was requested to be PLA, so I'm going to switch that to this profile. I'm not going to change any of the settings anywhere else, just going to switch. I'm going to go to Extent Map, EXT Map, and just go down to Extruder 1 Material and change that from ABS to PLA. So all of these, you're just going to usually change them over from ABS to PLA. You're not really going to mess with any of these unless you're doing a special project. So PLA, I'm going to make sure all the other settings are adjusted, that they're correct. I shouldn't need to change anything else. The stock should be already supported. That's good. The infill, like I said, is something that we can adjust. The default is supposed to be 12.5. Someone had it adjusted otherwise, so I'm going to change that back. And once everything's adjusted, I'm going to go to the top right, and then I'm going to hit Slice. It'll take a second. You'll see this weird laser go through the model, but that's essentially just going to take a rendering of the model itself. I'm going to wait for that to finish, and then once it's finished, it should turn green. So once that's done, based on this model's dimensions, you should have an estimate in the bottom right corner of how long it's going to take, what the mass is, how much filament you're actually going to use, and the actual minutes and hours it's estimated to take. You can ignore this $sign here, that's just part of the software. Now, if they do request a different dimensions, because as you remember, this one had requested 12 inches by 4 inches or something. If you ever need to change that, I'm afraid you're going to have to do a little bit of math and scale it by right-clicking on the model window that appears on the right, and just scale by X. This will bring up a little window, and you're going to enter the scaling factor that you want to do. So for now, for our purposes, I'm just going to put in 2 to double the size. And once you click OK, it'll resize it to that scale, and then you should just be able to slice it again like before, and it'll change the estimate. So this will take a little bit, but that's essentially what you'll need to do for each print. Now, once you get these values, you're going to jot them down, remember them, whatever you have to do, but you're going to have to record them and come back to your Google Chrome, come back to your submission review page, and you're going to have to click on Needs Review, this red button on the right of the print. You click on that, it's going to bring you to a list of all the models in this submission. You're going to have 4 different entries that you'll need to take care of. The runtime, so once we get that runtime, we'll enter them in here. The material usage, that's just the estimated amount of filament used. And then the notes, this is going to be your comments on the model. So if anything particular needs to be done, if you have to reject it for one reason or another, you'll put in why here. And this is actually a box that a patron will be able to see once you submit the rejection or approval. So let's go back to K-Slicer. It should be almost done by now. There we go. So like I said, larger models take a lot more RAM to actually take care of. Alright, so we've got that. We've got our estimate. This one's actually a pretty hefty 11 hours long. So I'm going to remember that time and the weight. I'm going to come back to Google. I'm just going to enter that in. So we've got 11 here, 10, 11 drop down, and then 23. And the material usage was 94, so I'm just going to type that in. And then as for notes, what you'll want to do, since this print is a viable print, we're going to go in and just type in something confirming that the print is acceptable. So I usually type in print looks good, just to keep things simplistic. As well, this is a very complex print with a lot of overhangs, so I'm going to have to put in support, so I'll have to tell them that support will be required. And then as well, these structures on the top here, these very thin, dangly structures, are going to be very difficult to print. Because they'll need support, it's very likely that they will break off. So I will want to mention that as well, because this is something you'll have to be careful, because we do not remove support for patrons unless they request it. So it's their responsibility to remove the supports, so they'll need to be careful whenever they remove this. So I usually like to tell them, be careful, because it's likely to damage anything that you remove. So detail may be lost due to support. being removed. Something of that nature, just to let them know. And then, of course, you want to confirm that you're going to print it in white PLA, because that's the filament that you have available, and that's the one they requested. And then assuming it's a good print, you just select Approve or Rejected here. And the same goes for every other print. It depends on the print itself, and you'll have a lot more detailed training on what consists of a good model and a bad model. As I've shown you before, there are some very obvious instances, but there are others that are not as easy to see. For instance, I probably would bring some concern over these errors, simply because they may cause the print to fail. But that's on a discretionary basis. That's simply up to your common sense judgment. So once you fill out all of these, you update the time, make sure everything's accurate and up to date, just scroll down to the very bottom and hit Submit. Of course, it won't let me submit this because I haven't filled everything in, but I'm just going to fill in a placeholder just so I can show you the next step. I'm going to submit that, and I'm actually going to reject this one just so you can see what it would look like rejected. So you submit, it'll take you back to the page, and it won't actually send out to the patron just yet. It'll take you back to the submission page. You'll want to go for clicking on the Ready button, and that will take you to this page. And this is the final confirmation before the patron actually sees it. So double check your notes, verify your accuracy, make sure you say exactly what you want to say. And as a note, you do want to be courteous whenever you're responding to notes, whenever you're putting in notes, because they can see this, and as a customer service representative, you want to take that into account. So try and be kind whenever you're saying this. After all, they may not know the errors that they've put in or what's wrong with the print itself. So assuming everything's correct, you just hit Submit, and that will send out an email to the patron with a link on how to pay for it based off of the time that they've submitted. Now remember, it is $1 per hour, and it rounds up. So this would actually be a $12 print, this CR90 little Star Wars ship that I've got here. Alright. Now I'm not actually going to submit this because these are placeholders. Now if I ever need to change anything, I can simply go back to Review, and it will take me back to this page here. So remember, it says blue button next to Review. Of course, it'll still give me the preview tabs, the download tabs, so if I lose anything, I can always come back here and just grab it as need be. But that's the review process. Assuming everything goes through and the patron pays for it, it will then go into our next queue, which is the Paid and Waiting to Print. Now this is the only way to get to it, so make sure you go to the top, Print Queues, and Paid and Waiting to Print, and this will display all the ones that we have on order to print right now. As you can see, there's quite a few patron prints and so on and so forth. Now that's the main part of it. That's the main review process done. So usually most people are on the ball with this. It takes about a day for them to review it. If they ever don't want the print, if the price is too much, they can just not respond to the email, and we won't ever receive it. We won't ever print it. So let's go to a print that I already have prepared. Right here, we're going to go to Preview. It'll show us the same thing that we saw beforehand. It'll show you the images. This one's actually rather large, so it'll take a bit of time. But you can see my notes, the time it was estimated at, the person who approved it, as well as the notes that it took to approve. So if there's any discussion between the patron and you, it'll be seen on this reviewed portion. And then, of course, their contact information on the right. But what we do is just click on the name, and this is a download link, so it'll actually download the model itself. Now I'm not going to print this one since it takes so much time, but we are going to print out a small one that I've already prepared for this. So let's get rid of this print. In order to delete models from KSlicer, just go to the right next to the model itself and just click this little X. That'll get rid of it, it'll clear your board, and you'll be all set. So let's just open up again another one. We're going to go ahead and print this one right here. This is actually a patron print that we need to take care of. So as you can see, it's a little domino, and he specified some very interesting properties. So I'm going to make sure everything's correct. He wanted PLA, so I'm going to make sure that's correct. And then the only thing you'll need to be concerned about with printing models is you'll want to make it as easy as possible to remove the support. Now remember, support only is generated on overhangs like these holes. So if you can remove the overhangs, you won't have to print support, which saves material, it saves hassle for the patron, it's just a better idea in general. So we're actually going to lie this one flat, because you can print this without support. We're just going to go over to the model and right-click, and then go to Transform Mesh, the very last tab. It'll open up some more tabs. And we're just going to click Y up, and it will lay it flat. So as you can see, this model would not require support, whereas the other one would, so it just saves time. Now we're going to slice it like this. It's the right size and everything. I've already made sure that the scale and the height was correct. So we're going to slice this one here, and we're going to save it in the same place. So as you can see, the slice button is replaced by the save, and this will just save the G-code. We're going to save it in our downloads. Okay, so this G-code is ready to go. So this print is all but ready to print. So for that, the actual software we're going to use to print things is this icon right here. This is Polypronter. This is the software that comes with the polyprinter, so it's actually, it'll come with. It's not something you have to look up or anything like that. So we're just going to open up a new tab. Now I've disconnected this on purpose just to show you guys how to set up the printer itself. Now I've turned on the printer using the manual switch on the printer itself, and I'm just going to find the serial port that this printer is connected to. I'm just going to click connect. Now I already know that this is COM7, but if there are multiple printers up and running, you're just going to have to do a bit of trial and error to pick out which COM is which, because these printers do not have a screen on them that shows which port they're using. So I already know it's COM7, so I'm just selecting that, connecting, and I like to test it. I like to use this to just test out which one it is. So I usually click X or the Y axis on the board, because this is your controls for the actual printer bed itself. X to the right, X to the left. These circles represent increments of millimeters, so 0.1, 1, 10, 100 millimeters. So usually I like to click one or the other just to test that I've got the right printer selected. And of course you've got your Z-axis controls with the same increments, and then your Y. These are actually inverted from what you would think they would be. So negative Y will actually push the bed further into the printer, and plus Y will push it out towards you. So just remember that little tidbit. Of course, you've got your homing buttons here. Now this is the actual controls for the extruder and the filament. So right now it's at 21 degrees Celsius for both the bed and the extruder. That's perfectly normal. If you ever need to change the filament, depending on what filament type you have, you'll want to go 230 for ABS and 210 for PLA. So you can just type it in and just click set. But of course I didn't delete that. So type in 210 and hit set, and it will heat up the extruder to 210 degrees. And you can do the same thing for the bed. Now if you ever need to reduce the temperature, you can just click off and it will slowly cool itself. Flush extruder is only used when you're changing filaments. What you would do is set the extruder to the temperature that you need, so PLA, ABS, and then you just click flush extruder after you've changed the color, and this will purify any remaining filament colors that you might have. So if you want to change from gray to white, you would just remove the white, put in the gray, flush the extruder, and then all the white remaining should be removed. Alright, but once you've got your print ready, you've got your color set, you've got your temperature ready, everything's good to go, you're just going to go to the top left of this and click Load File, and you're just going to find your file from the top. It should always be at the top. We like to keep things a bit organized, but you just select the G-code here and click Open, and as you can see, it'll slowly start to render the file on the bed itself. And this will actually show you the path. So if you ever need to look at what layer height it's at, this will be the one you need. Alright, so I'm just going to make sure everything's good to go. Once everything's loaded in, it will give you another estimated time based on Polypronter. This is sometimes different from K-Slicer, but that's just a discrepancy with G-code filing. It's usually nothing too significant to pay attention to. And then once you've got all your information together, you'll want to note things down in your forms, of course, but after everything's good to go, you would just click print in the top left here, and then the print would start. After which, you'll just close the printer and wait for things to finish. Once it is started, this blank spot right here, I'll show you in a second what it actually looks like. This blank spot right here will be populated with a % time done, what layer it's on, how many lines it has left, and what time it's estimated left to be done. So it'll give you some good information on just a status update for the print itself. But as far as examining the printer goes and getting a print ready to run, that is the general idea of it. Of course, like I said, there are more details to learn with K-Slicer, the actual adjusting. You can adjust filament size or extruder size based off of what extruder you have and so on and so forth. So there's a much more depth than I'm going to go into for our purposes. But I would encourage you to look up the different, what each of these items look like specifically in your own time. Because this, as far as research goes, this is a wonderful topic to get into. So this is the 3D information print sheet. This is the actual form that we fill out every time we do a print for patrons. It's got all the information that we need on it to just keep track of which print is which. So I'm going to fill a general placeholder one out just to give you an idea of what you're actually looking for. And then after that we'll move on to actually printing the object itself. Now this is something that you'll want to fill out before you actually start run the print. That way you can put this inside the printer while the print is actually running, and it helps you keep track of which print is which, just in case you somehow forget. So the first box that you want to fill out is the patron details. These details will be on the website that I showed you. It'll be on the exact place I showed you, actually. You'll have their name, the date they submitted it, their email, and then their phone number that they put on. For faculty and staff, usually it'll just be 4 numbers or their department number, something like that. After that, you fill that out. Go down to maker details. Now this is going to be the file name of the actual print that you're printing. So it'll be xyzprint.stl. That is the actual file that you have prepared for printing and that you are printing right now. And then after that, you've got the maker who approved the print. So you'll be able to see that on the preview of the model itself. There will be a section that states who printed it and why they approved it. You'll put down their name, and then you'll put down your name because you're the one preparing this print to actually run through. You're the one who's going to be changing the filament, so you'll have to put in your name. And then after that, you put any notes that the patron may have specified or that you may have required. So put down infill, the type of filament used, the color that you use, so on and so forth. So any additional settings that you had to change, you put in here. This section is not really in particular. This will be for very specific events or very specific prints that bear some importance to them. So right now you don't have to worry about this box. And then right here, this is the box that you'll fill out to keep track of the print status. So right here you've got the time started. Once you actually hit print on the Polyprinter software, you'll just put down the date here. I myself like to put down military time just to keep things interesting, but you're free to put down whatever time you wish, or whatever format you wish. After that, you'll check this box here because we have a maximum amount of times that we can print a model before we give up. We essentially consider it failed. Now obviously this will differ per print. I usually like to give them as many chances as they can. I usually like to try and troubleshoot an item because I'm particular like that. But as far as a rule goes, 3 times and the print is considered a failure. At that point, we would let the patron know that we were unable to print it and that we would then have to communicate with them further. So you check it first time because this is the first time that you're printing it. You put the time in. The time is currently 3:53, so I'm going to put in 15:53 with my horrible handwriting. And then once you're finished, once the print is actually ended, the Polyprinter software will give you a time that it's finished. So you'll just put that time here, and then you'll put the date ready for pickup. As long as the print is viable, you would just put the actual dates. Today is February 7th, 2019, so I would put that down here. And then that's all you would do. Once the print is actually finished and you pull it from the bed, you will keep this with that print at all times. Usually people just keep it on the paper itself. And then you will
when the patron comes to pick it up, you will then bring this sheet to them. They will sign, confirming that it's completed, that you're happy with it. They'll put their name, their signature, and the date, and then you will put your name and signature and date, stating that you checked their ID and that you confirmed on the website that they picked it up. So it will need your patron's confirmation and your confirmation. You will have to check their ID to confirm that they are the same person, so a photo ID of any kind will work. But as far as the information sheet goes, that is all that you have to fill out, and that's when you have to actually fill it out. So this sheet should stay with the print the entire time that you're actually completing it, and it should, once everything is filled out, once the patron has picked everything up, you will then file this away under the appropriate place. It might have changed by the time you're seeing this, so I'm not going to tell you the specific location. Usually it's a yellow folder of some kind, but that will change per management, so I would ask you just to keep that in mind, and just make sure you ask your leads where these sheets are supposed to be filed. But as far as things go, that's the only bit of paperwork you have to actually keep track of. These will be printed and kept in supply for you, and if not, you'll be shown how to actually replicate these. But that is the only paperwork that you have to do to actually take care of this, in addition to marking these completions and marking the different steps on the website.
We've got the 3D model ready to print. I'm going to take you through a few steps on what you'll need to actually get the printer set up and running to actually run the print itself. So you come over here. Currently we've got a printer set up. Normally, this is how you'll normally find it. We've got a filament set up. It's already spooled. It's already set up to go. I could run the print with this color if I wanted to right now. However, the patron asked for white PLA instead of gray PLA. So I'm going to have to change out the colors and then prepare them for each other. So the first thing you want to do is heat up the extruder using the Polyprompter software. After it's heated up, you can then just hold down this yellow nozzle until it loosens up, and then you can pull the filament spool out of that hole here. And then after that, you just want to spool up. You can just pull out the spool and just wind it back up. So after that, this is free to put back on the shelf once you're done. I'm going to put it over here for now. And after that, you want to take your fresh roll of new filament color, find the end, and just spool it onto this latch back here. You want to run it up through this black compartment right here, just so to keep it as a guide. Spool it back over here, make sure you get plenty of loose ends. Now, if the end itself is bulbous, or if it's too large to fit into this pinpoint hole here, you can take this trimmer and just run the filament through to give yourself a fresh end. Otherwise, I'm going to pull down the yellow latch. I'm just going to insert it inside. It takes a little bit of force sometimes because you're fighting against a motor. But after you pushed it through, it should just be free to release, and that's all set. Now, we're not done yet. So after you've done that, you've got to take the flax filament that you've got here. There's a small sensor wheel back here that you have to pull open. It's magnetically sealed, so you just got to pull it open with a bit of force. You've got to line up the filament to run with that wheel, and then you've got to snap it back into place. Hold on one sec. There you go. So now this filament is set and ready to go. We're not done entirely yet because there's still a bit of gray filament stuck in the extruder. We didn't pull it all out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the Polyprompter software, and I'm just going to put a flush extruder, and then we'll actually show you flushing it out once they're done with that. Now that I've got the filament switched, I've got the extruder flushed. There is one minor thing that we have to take care of when changing filament types. So if you're switching from PLA to ABS or vice versa, there is 2 different ways of printing this. Now, with PLA, you'll want to make sure that there's blue painter's tape on the bed itself. This is just part of the print. It's a standard that we use to help adhere it without using adhesives or glue that you have to constantly reapply. We just use painter's tape. Now, I don't have to change this because I'm not switching from PLA to ABS. I'm just switching from one color PLA to another. But if you were to switch from PLA to ABS, you would need to take off this blue tape and make sure that there's a layer of green PET tape on the bed. and vice versa. If you are switching from ABS to PLA, you need to make sure you put a layer of painter's tape on, and that is very smooth and it's very well defined. So if there were bubbles in this, or if there were tears, you would want to put on a new layer of painter's tape. But once you've got this down, your print is ready to go. You just hit print on the Polypronter software. Make sure it's clean of any filament or any excess dust or anything like that. And then once you hit print, simply put your form onto this bed back here. Just simply lie it here just so we know which print is which, and then close the bed itself. Whenever you're printing, make sure that the window is always closed, and then once it's finished, keep it closed until it's cooled down completely. You can allow, for PLA filaments, make sure that you allow the bed to cool completely. For ABS, you can allow it to cool to 70 degrees Celsius, then you can take it off the bed. But other than that, there's not much else you have to concern yourself with. Once it's printing, you can just leave it be and simply wait for it to be done. Got a print that's already finished. As far as getting them off the bed, there's nothing spectacular to it. Just simply take a spatula of any kind, and then all you have to do is just work the piece off using the spatula, and then it should come away. ABS will be a lot smoother. You can really just tear it off the bed, and it shouldn't give you much difficulty. But sometimes with PLA, you have to use a spatula because they stick. Alright, and that wraps up the video on 3D printing. Now obviously there are a lot more details to this. This is not an exact science, it's more an art really. So if you ever have questions, ask your team leads. There's usually someone who's going to be paired with you who understands this at least a little bit better. Then feel free to ask questions too. Now after watching this video, you are going to be expected to take a test on the matter and perform a live action shadowing. Someone's going to actually shadow you and make sure that you can run through this process effectively. So I would encourage you to go back through this video. If you need, I would advise you to go to the website that we actually have, the factoryguides.library.unt.edu/factory. I would suggest that you actually look up these 3D printers that we have, because we have specifications on them that I did not cover on this video. But if you, again, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know, because you are not expected to know all of this at once. This is a process that you have to look through and learn your own research. I certainly had to. With that, I bid you good day.